Good morning, everyone. Good morning on this wonderful autumnal day when we get to see the beauty of the leaves falling off the trees that have been so beautiful on the trees. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to Interfaith Community Sanctuary. Here we are Sunday morning, welcoming a congregant to our podium here to talk to us, and we're very happy to have all of us here today and all of us online. We apologize about last week. We've had some internet issues going on here, and we think we have everything under control today, right, Bryce? I think we're definitely going strong today. Thank you. Thank you for your tolerance as we worked our way through that last Sunday. We are happy to have you all here today, and I have lit the altar, the candles on the altar, the peace candles, and opened the altar with the books, the sacred books that we have gathered throughout the years to help us gain wisdom of the various spiritual traditions that have graced our civilization for so long. And we will open today. I better figure out what we're going to open with. I think I'm going to open with welcoming in our ancestors and our honoring our first peoples. Yes, that's it. So I will take a moment here with you joining me to take a few deep breaths to come into the present moment. This universe has placed us all right here in this time and place. And it's really quite a miracle that we are here right now. We're nowhere else. And no one else is having the exact same experience we are having in this moment. And we are together, which is a blessing. And we are gathering in the energy from our ancestors. That would be everyone who has come before us. That would be all our relations, as they say in the Native American tradition. All our relations on Mother Earth. And we are Mother Earth, as we are reminded by Thich Nhat Hanh. We are Mother Earth, and she is our mother because she birthed us all. And she birthed all the plants and all the animals and all the crawling creatures and the flying birds and all the trees and the swamps and the algae and all of us people who are roaming the earth causing mischief. And we are going to call in our ancestors, the ones who can grant us wisdom, grant us hope, grant us courage. The ancestors who helped build this society that we live in and helped build all of the things we are grateful for around us and all the things we have built and all of the things that we have been able to live in harmony with and not destroy. And we thank our ancestors for being here with us and granting us their wisdom, their courage, their hope, and their strength as we move into a very troubled future. And I would also like to honor and thank the Native American peoples who lived on this land and still live on this land and who have stewarded this land here in the Northwest, the Salish, Coast Salish people, the Duwamish tribe in particular, and many, many tribes. And their stewardship of the land when they have been living on it and when they were actually the caretakers of it, made it possible for us to come later. And unfortunately, we're on unceded territory, which we took from them, and we tried to shuffle them off into other places so these white people from other continents could come and take over. So that was an unfortunate part of our history that I like to acknowledge. And ask forgiveness for. And at this point in history, we try to live peacefully with our Native American neighbors. We try to work with them on ways to continue to preserve and protect our environment, our salmon, our whales, all the various life forms that feed us and keep us going here. And we thank them for their guidance and their community in helping us to preserve Mother Earth. So we're grateful for all of that. And I would like to ask Anita up to do a reading and an honoring of the Divine Feminine. And we have a candle here that we light every Sunday to help us remember and honor the feminine energies, the yin energies that are in all of us and all creatures and all creation. Sometimes gets forgotten.
Good morning. O gentle, O kind, O blessed Sophia, thy children on earth call unto thee. We pray thee, beloved Mother, to cast forth thy net of woven starlight, fling it wide across the ocean of the universe, to gather us home to the realms of light. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sister Anita. The beloved Sophia was a wonderful, honored saint of the traditions of the people of, what do you call that? The English, the Isles, England, Ireland, and the British Isles, what is now known as the British Isles. Sophia is a beloved saint of that area. And we're going to have a little musical interlude, and then I will introduce our speaker. Thank you, Steve Crawford, our wonderful musician for today. Thank you so much, Brother Steve, that beautiful meditative music. This morning I'm very delighted and pleased and grateful to be presenting to you a longtime member of Interfaith Community Sanctuary. In fact, only Lee knows how long he's been a member, because I believe he's been a member longer than I have, more than 20 years. Am I right, Lee?
It is more than 20 years. It's been so long, I can't even remember how long it's been, but it's been so long. You know, it's
Well, that's credential enough for us. Thank you, Lee. I knew it was a long time, and I remember Lee being here and being a stalwart member of our community since I joined up over 20 years ago. And I want you to take a look when you get a chance at the bio that I found online for Lee, and I passed it by him. It's all true. None of this is made up. But he's an amazing person, and professionally. He now lives in Port Townsend with his wife, Anita, how many of us went to their wedding not long ago? It was how long ago was that? 5 years ago, or how many? Yeah, about 5 years. About like that. Anyway, it was a beautiful wedding. And you have a little picture of it. I found in my stash of pictures, a picture of and Jamal officiated that wedding out in Port Townsend. It was a beautiful event. But that's then. This is now. So, Lee has been a master shipwright. What do you call it? Shipwright. Is that pronouncing that? Okay, master shipwright. You keep the ship upright? Is that what? No. I'll let him explain that in a minute. Wait a minute.
a little more than that.
Well, anyway, he's. You go ahead and tell us.
It's got green light.
You got to do it up top too.
There it is. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. A shipwright, in this day and age, is a person that repairs wooden boats. And I lived in Ballard here for about 40 years and worked on the Ballard waterfront, repairing, rebuilding wooden boats of all kinds. And that's what I do more or less still, although I'm not a shipwright. But once you finish doing the shipwrighting stuff for half a lifetime, then you graduate into doing more important things like supervising younger people that are doing it, or inspecting the boat when it's done so I can get insurance or get a loan from a bank or something like that. So that's what I do. I work now as a Marine Surveyor. I'm trying to retire from it because I've been doing it a long time. But the fact is, I love doing it. I love meeting the people. I love helping people make dreams come true, because I've done a lot of that myself. I've crossed many oceans with sailing ships. And that's what a lot of people want to do, is buy a boat and kind of get away from the city. And I help those dreams come true. So I keep doing it, and I have a lot of students that I teach, and they work with me and help me too, because it's getting hard for me to get down in the lower nooks and crannies of the boat, down in the bilges, and look at all the bilge alarms and bilge pumps and things like that. So I have a lot of other people that help me with that, and I do lots of big wooden ships and steel ships and all kinds of things. So still at that.
Well, thank you, Lee. And when you get into conversation with Lee later, I recommend you ask him to talk to you about a trip he has been on one of these boats, because you'll get an amazing story. I've been able to hear some of those fantastic stories of his travels. But actually, Lee is here today to talk to us about another journey he's taken, which is his life journey. And his life journey is a fascinating one, I think we will all find. And it's a spiritual journey, as well as just a deeply personal and, I'm going to let him paint the picture for us and tell us all about it. I think we will all appreciate it and grow and find wisdom in it. So I'll let you take that away, Lee, and let us know what you have. His title is Sanctuary for the Self, My Path in Life as an Alcoholic. And there will be a chance after his talk for us to do some interacting with him about his story and maybe ask some questions or make some comments about how we relate to it. So we'll let him tell his story and be very enthralled to learn about it. Thank you, Lee.
Well, thank you, Sally Jo, for asking me. And I knew about 4 or 5 months ago we started talking about this kind of a talk, and I knew it was time to refresh my knowledge and experiences with alcoholism, and get out just a lot of reading material and kind of get back into thinking about my path in life and what it's been like. And over the course of time, I've been thinking about that, and finally came up with more of a kind of a written script that I did, but it was sort of the true essence of me, of who I am. And I thank you all for coming to hear me talk. And I know when we come here, you know, we have this expression where we have an attitude of gratitude that comes out of AA, but here there's a lot more that we bring. We bring our divine essence, we bring our spiritual essence here to it, and that's what I'm grateful for. And thank you for coming to hear me give a little talk for maybe a half hour or something like that. But it's called My Path in Life as an Alcoholic. What does it take to be an alcoholic? Well, that's a question that a lot of us may think about, because we have members in our family. We know people in other situations that have been drinkers, maybe alcoholics, maybe people that have been in recovery. There's a lot of recovery programs going on today, because there's a lot of addiction going on all kinds, everything from food, sugar, alcohol, tobacco, gambling. Boy, there's a lot of that kind of thing that kind of brings us down. And us humans, we're all kind of frail to those kind of things. And I think part of it is knowing how to maybe get beyond it, because that's become kind of empowering to move beyond it and get into the healing aspect of it. But what does it take to be an alcoholic? That's a question I've thought about for a lot of years. I do believe I was born with the genes of an alcoholic. My father, grandfather, uncle, and cousins were alcoholics. My son Jens Christian out in Australia is an alcoholic. The genes from our German and English heritage have helped us all to become alcoholic. My story does have a happy ending, because I learned to sober up and stop drinking. If I added up all my years of sobriety, I would have around 35 years now. I'm grateful for the grace of God that lives in my heart and my soul, for the sobriety that I have today. It's my most precious thing in life that I can have and share with you all. I was introduced to the Alcoholics Anonymous organization around 50 years ago in Hawaii. Alcoholics Anonymous is an informal fellowship of men and women who come together to share their personal experience, strengths, and hope. They help each other to get and stay sober and lead a normal, useful life. The only requirement for joining AA is a desire to stop drinking. The program for recovery is based on 12 steps, the first of which is the admission that we're powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. I had been sailing for a lot of years in different parts of the world, and most of the time having duty-free alcohol on board. Now, many of you may not have heard about duty-free alcohol or what that means, but there's a lot of ports in the world where you can get tax-free items to take on your boat to consume at sea. And a lot of these duty-free ports will have endless amounts of alcohol, tobacco, watches, other things that you can buy, sailors can buy to take on their boats. So it becomes very easy to buy these kind of things when you're sailing from port to port. And when you go on various ships, you'll see the crew will have lots of different commodities, especially alcohol and tobacco, because those are special items. Those are kind of trading items. It's like another form of currency, actually, when you can trade it and use it. Well, drinking was a part of the sailing lifestyle, which it often is with people on boats. Living and working in New Zealand for 2 years, building boats was fun, but there was a drinking lifestyle with my good mates in the shipyard. After those 2 years in New Zealand and sailing through Polynesia for several years, I sailed back to Tahiti and to Hawaii and knew I was tired of my drinking lifestyle. I slowly developed a change of heart and wished for a change in me. I was invited to an AA meeting in Hilo, Hawaii, and after hearing stories about other drinkers, I knew I was in the right place. The world is full of drinkers, and the lucky ones can find the AA organization and learn to live a good life of sobriety. The AA organization began back in the mid-30s in Ohio when two alcoholics found each other and realized they could help each other by sharing their story of drinking. AA has since grown in leaps and bounds. And over the decades since then, in the U.S. and worldwide, and as I mentioned, it's only having an honest desire that gets you in the door, an honest desire to stop drinking that gets you in the doors of AA. And all people are welcome, and they're about 1 hour meetings. Seattle probably has 100 meetings a week or more, because there's a lot of alcoholics, a lot of drinkers around, and a lot of people get caught up in that particular addiction. AA is not a religious organization, but simply based on a belief in a higher power. And it is simply based on that belief, the power, and that higher power. What is meant by that? It's just a power that we consider greater than ourselves. In other words, it's sort of a belief in a Holy Spirit, and a lot of us have that. So to some people, being in AA is fairly easy because we have that built-in idea or that feeling of wanting to connect to something greater than ourselves, to something like a higher power. At the AA meetings, some people may be agnostic, may be atheist, but they still want to recover and have a life of sobriety, but they don't have that belief in the higher power, but they use the group consciousness, the goodness of the AA group that's at a meeting, sitting around just like this, sharing from an open heart. That becomes their higher power. So there's a way in AA meetings that really everybody can fit in, and that's what we like. It's certainly open to the public, and everybody's welcome. It's only a matter of believing in a power greater than ourselves. Nothing more is required. We learn to sit quietly, asking our higher power for direction and strength to carry out our honest desire to stop drinking. This is a humble prayer. It is a surrendering of our most inner selves. Drinkers have so often tried to use their own willpower to give up drinking, but only to find that it's become practically non-existent. Going to AA meetings can slowly change our way of thinking. A daily routine of thoughtful meditation, prayer, and sharing our heartfelt desires with others at meetings slowly changes our compulsive behavior to drink. I have a mantra that I say every day, and I started this some years ago, and it evolved through some of the Circle of Love class that I was in with Brother Jamal. And it goes like this: thank you, God, for sobriety. May I be of love and peace and service today to everyone I meet. And that's what I say every day. And that's very helpful for me. And thank you, Jamal, for helping put that together, because it is through daily prayer, meditation, and thoughtfulness like that that we can change our mind. We can retrain our mind by working on it on a daily basis, as like a daily prayer. Through the 12 steps and traditions of AA, we develop a new philosophy of life, develop a new set of friends. We begin to see a bright light ahead instead of a dark tunnel that the old chronic drinker may see. Please allow me to read the steps and traditions, for they help us develop a new way of seeing life. And it's how we learn to reconnect with family and friends. They help us create a new joyful path forward, one that we desire and understand. So I'll read the 12 steps that we have. These are kind of 12 steps to recovery. And there are a lot of other recovery programs that pretty well follow kind of the AA steps that we have. They just change it. Instead of alcohol, they may call it food. They may call it sugar. They may call it gambling. They may call it narcotics and things like that. But here's the 12 steps of AA. 1, we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Admitted to God, 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all our defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, ends upon AA unity. For our group purpose, there is one An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our principal purpose. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service boards may employ special workers. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or communities directly responsible to those they serve. AA has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name should never be drawn into public controversy. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We always need to maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. Anonymity is a spiritual foundation of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. And when we say that word anonymity, what we mean is when we go to that meeting, we don't have to necessarily identify ourselves who we are. We can just say, my name is Lee and I'm an alcoholic, and that's good enough. We don't have to know who the last name is. We don't know who that person is. Because sometimes for a lot of people, there's a lot of shame in drinking. So there's a lot of people that want to kind of hide their name, not want to be known what they do or anything like that. It's because they're still kind of not necessarily hungover, but they're still caught up with the shame that went on or the things they may have done when they were wrong in the sense of the people that they had harmed. So my name is just Lee, and I'm an alcoholic, and that's all that matters at meetings. But we all get to share. And you know, the beautiful thing about a church service, an AA meeting, or any of these kind of recovery meetings is we learn to speak from our heart. And as we do open up our heart, it lets others open theirs. You know, and as we do that, we spill our inside. Our gut is full of old anger, full of disappointments and harassments and various other things that are a problem for us. We want to get that out. So being able to talk openly to one another in a surrendering environment, we're able to just sit and release all that inside junk and get it out on the table and kind of diffuse it, kind of gets it past, lets it pass. You know, and that's what we want to do. We want to make forgiveness. We want to surrender our hearts, but we want to ask for forgiveness. We want to give forgiveness as it's needed. You know, we want to be open to that. Let me read what we call the serenity prayer, too. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That I'm an alcoholic. Courage to change the things I can. By maybe healing and giving it up, and wisdom to know the difference. So that's the serenity prayer of AA that I like and say a lot. So yeah, I'm glad I could read those 12 steps and traditions because it lets you know about a new way of thinking, a new way of getting a hold of a philosophy that you can live by. We all need a philosophy to live life by that makes sense. I mean, certainly if we're in business, we need to be able to open our hearts, be genuine with one another, have a code of ethics, have an understanding of what make life work. You know, what makes it work is us being loving and caring and honest and sharing with people from our heartfelt self. And when you can learn to be at meetings and open up yourself, that's what healing is. So yeah, let me tell you why I was so pleased to give this talk on AA and my sobriety. And it was because I was able to get out my big blue book of AA. I had this book put away in my library for about 2 decades at least, and didn't really get into it too much because I didn't really need to. But in my wallet, I have a bunch of cards, AA cards, including one that shows no first drink, because I don't want to get caught up in that drinking thing again. So I have my daily reminders. That's good. And one of the things I've always gotten from Jamal's classes is about a daily repetition of doing things, of saying things, because slowly the mind does change, and we can change our mind through repetition, through daily centering and daily repair. So yeah, I dusted off my book. I reread many parts of it because the most important thing in my life, because it's really, sobriety is the most important thing in my life. The only thing I can't do in life is really having that first drink. That first drink, I'm afraid, would lead me to 1 or 2. And I'd actually, in my 35 years of sobriety, I had 25 years one time. And then I went out. I had some bad news about some things, and I was very disappointed about it, but I went out and bought a bottle of rum and called my Norwegian lady friend at the time and said, I'm drunk. I just had some bad news that I couldn't handle, and I went out and drank after 25 years. And people wonder, and I often wonder, what causes a person to go out after 25 years of sobriety? Well, certain bad news, the mind triggers, the mind changed, and something happened. Well, it took me about 5 years to get back in the program. And you know, one of the things was, I miss thanking God for sobriety. I miss that daily routine. Boy, when you get to drinking, you're in a different mindset. You know, and I'm in the mindset where I want to live a sober, loving, compassionate life with myself, my family, my wife, and everyone I know. So I'm so glad to be back in the AA program, because it's really who I am. I'll have the rest of my life being sober. With sobriety, all of life to me is easy and very doable. It's just that one first drink that's very scary. So I just don't tangle with that one first drink, and then everything else is good. So that's not too much of a hardship for me. I'm in a good frame of mind, and I feel very blessed to have that. And to have spiritual values in my heart and soul make me know that I'm in the right place in life. It can be hard to give up the drink after decades of drinking. A true alcoholic hides booze in the nooks and crannies so that he or she will not run out. That's one definition of an alcoholic. It's just hiding those booze in places where you don't want people to find them. You know, you get into serious drinking, you kind of withdraw from society too, and that's not so good in itself too. You know, I think the people that are more stable in life are those that are connected with life, connected with family, with a church of whatever denomination that you choose. So to an alcoholic, the thought of totally giving it up is a very scary thing. That giving it up is unimaginable. The phenomena of craving drives one to drink more. Craving goes beyond their mental control. Craving is a very powerful human experience and a force that can affect anybody. But over time of total abstinence, this powerful mental force can slowly be overcome. Let me tell you a little bit about acceptance. That's a word we hear in AA a lot. Well, just let me say, I believe we're all created equal. We're all created with love. And we're used to being that way. We're used to looking at one another and knowing that our hearts are open. We can talk. We can be at one with one with one another. And I feel sorry for this generation that's coming up now that has a lot of uncertainty about life. There's a little bit of anger about things. That next generation, I feel for them, yes, because maybe they don't have what we have. We grew up with an understanding of one another that we could all have our personal ideas and be who we want to be, and it's all okay, and we should do that. And one thing about AA is we learn to accept, individuals as who they are. We have an expression in AA. In fact, it's called "live and let live." And I think that's a wonderful expression, because I can live my life and let my brother or sister live their life. And that's what we want to do, is let us be open to one another. That's a little bit of AA philosophy. And I try to apply this to life as much as I can. But that comes out, some thoughts that come out of the big book of AA too. But the word acceptance is the answer to a lot of problems today. When I'm disturbed, it's because I find some person, place, thing, or situation sort of in my face, in my life, unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept the way that is at the moment. I can just let it be. We can't control everything in life and people around us. We just have to let it be as it is and accept it as it is. And that's what I like. And I know nothing absolutely happens in God's world that's a mistake. So I had a problem too. I couldn't accept my alcoholism because I didn't really accept that I was. But as soon as I realized I knew I was an alcoholic, and that was what it was, and that was what it was going to be like. So I had to learn to adjust my thinking to the world around me. I couldn't ask the world to change, because it wasn't going to change. I had to change. And through AA, we learned to change who we are to become a better person. I changed my way of thinking with the grace of God, and that is what the feeling of being, to me, reborn is again. Reborn again is kind of a new way of thinking, a way of breaking down the ego. So yeah, I've learned to be happy with who I am in my life, and I wanted to kind of finalize a little bit, or make a summary. There's something in Jamal's book that was written a long time ago. There was something in here that just caught my eye, and I knew it was the most perfect summary for my talk. And to summarize, and I'll quote this from Brother Jamal's book, the point of our journey through life is to obtain healing, empowerment, and transformation through connection with our divine essence, and to help our friends do the same as is needed. By embracing the scattered egos, by embracing the scattered pieces of the ego and integrating them with our sacred core, we will become increasingly whole, happy, authentic, and at peace. And I think the whole goal in life should be how to learn at peace. And I feel very relaxed up here because I'm at peace. And I feel good about that. I know I'm in the right place, and I know my job is to share my heartfelt desires, which I have, and I'm grateful for you all to listen and to be a part of it. And I realize with AA, it is such a big thing in my life that I have my daily reminder of, as I mentioned in my wallet, my cards from AA that are my daily reminder of, I may be in a store in the Safeway shopping, and there's my wallet, I'm feeling my wallet, pulling it out, and I know my cards of AA are in there. That no picture of that no first ring, for example, is there. So that's the daily reminder, and that keeps me on sort of the straight and narrow by having those kind of daily reminders. And that's what's been good for me, so I'm just very grateful to have this opportunity to speak to you all, and I thank you for that. And I'm grateful that I can continue to live with a good attitude and have a philosophy of life that makes sense to me, and I can continue on my spiritual path as a growing path. And that's what I want to do. I'm always in a learning and growing situation in life. So that's really what I wanted to share today, and I wanted to see if anybody had any thoughts or comments or critiques or anything, because one thing in AA, we have a little bit of talk among people to help one another. People often have questions about things with AA, and I'm here, an open book. I'm transparent. Everything I've learned in AA over the last 50 years is here. It's in this blue book, and I'm accountable for it. And I want to be here as honest and open as I can to answer any questions that any of you might have, or thoughts, or after the meeting too. I'll be downstairs when we have the meeting about immigration and things too, to talk to people too. Because this subject of alcoholism, it's very powerful, and a lot of people that maybe are wondering about it have friends who are connected with maybe too much drinking or so on. This is a kind of a quiet subject where they may not want to talk openly about it. But I like to come along and do open it up, to talk and ask to be a part of answering any questions that I may have about that subject. And does anyone here have any thoughts or comments that they'd like to make? Everybody's welcome to say. Everything is confidential here too, and that's something we always say in AA. Yeah.
Wait a minute, Janine. I'll bring you the microphone so we can hear. But I want to pause just for a second. Some people might want this conversation to be right away. I was thinking we could have a little musical interlude where people can kind of let it settle what Lee has shared with us for a few minutes, and then we can go on with the questioning, if that would work, or we can go right into it if you're eager to do that. Doesn't matter the order. Okay, then the other question we have is, do we want to keep the live stream on? This is a place where we could pause the live streaming. We haven't done our announcements and other things, but I think it might be wise to do that. So Bryce, maybe you could do that for us, and then go ahead with the questioning, and then we'll open it up again to the music and the ending. That would be fine. Okay, I just wanted to be sure everybody had a say in that. Okay.
Do we want to have something that we don't mind being live streamed, then have music and then more personal stuff later? Yeah, I just had I'm just curious about, what are the other cards in your wallet, Lee? Besides, don't do the first drink. Are there some other simple ones that are meaningful to you? I'm just curious.
Yeah, actually, I always carry this one that mentions the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, the serenity of prayer. My old Coast Guard wallet that I've had for 20 years. Buried deep in here, but I know where they are. In the back are my cards, my things that I carry. Well, there's my Costco card. That doesn't work there. Or my Safeway card. But there's things like, here's something. Peace begins with each one of us in a way we look at others. Listen to others and speak about others, he said. In this sense, the way we communicate is a fundamental importance. We must say no to war of words and images. We must reject the paradigm of war. And in his brief speech, in which he reflected on the power of the words to do good, he greeted some of the journalists in front of the row, and he shook their hand with the crowd, and he exited the audience, from the audience. Now, I don't know why I got that in there, but I do have that. But here's a picture of my no first drink. And here's what it says on the back of the card. Keeping sober is the most important thing in my life. The most important decision I ever made was to give up alcohol. I am concerned that my whole life depends on my not taking that first drink. Nothing is important to me as my own sobriety. Everything I have, my whole life, depends on that one thing. Can I afford to forget this, even for 1 minute? No, I can't. No, I'd be a little bit afraid of that first drink. And you know, when I go into the supermarkets and walk past the alcohol section where they're selling all that alcohol, I just walk by and I just kind of smile and I think, I don't have to be a part of it. It's a wonderful feeling to walk by knowing that you're not a part of that and that I'm totally oblivious to alcohol now because I've been with this sobriety for so long in my life that I don't need to be a part of it and I can just walk from it. I have another thing here that's a prayer of faith. God is my help in every need. God does my hunger feed. God walks beside me. He guides me through my moment of the day. I now am wise, I now am true, patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do, and be, and through Christ, the truth that is in me. God is my health, I cannot be sick. God is my strength, unfailing, quiet. God is my all, I know no fear, since God and love and truth are here. That's a quote from somebody. So yeah, I have these in my wallet, and sometimes I can just touch my my pocket, and in my wallet I know those cards. So yeah, I have a very subtle daily reminder that it only takes about 2 seconds to feel that, and I remember who I am. I'm that alcoholic that doesn't take that first drink. And that's all I need. And I smile, and I'm happy, and I'm grateful, and I feel sort of protected by God in some way, but at the same time, my protection has to do with myself, my own stability and stuff like that. So I guess you could say the higher spirit is sort of a partner in my life, living in my soul, and I just let it be there because I know it's a piece of me. So yeah, thanks for asking me to get out those cards. I didn't plan on doing that. But it's a part of my life, and it's a part of staying sober. It's a part of remembering who I am. And that's part of how you overcome addiction. And everyone has a different path, perhaps, of getting over addiction, and this happens to be mine, and it happens to work. So I'm grateful to share it with you all. Yeah, thank you. Any more questions or thoughts?
Hey, you.
Hey, John. You're a dear friend.
I am, I guess I'll start first with a gratitude because I'm assuming, and I'm using my imagination, but in your field there are hazards. And what I'm grateful for is that for some set of events, they never set up or they never occurred in a manner in which you were so impaired that you wouldn't be able to do something safely and that you weren't hurt or damaged. And maybe that's just the divinity or a higher power helping you, leading you, giving you protection, helping to guide you. I mean, I know others who have gone through AA, and I hear this talk about the lowest of the low, or the low point. And I don't know if that happened to you as well, but I know others have said that was the turning point where it's like, okay, I give up, I surrender, now I need to know what to do. And they sort of, it starts from that point rolling on. But I'm still grateful that nothing really serious ever happened. So thank you.
Yeah, right. That's good. Some good thoughts there. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of alcoholics said, keep drinking, and keep drinking, and keep drinking, and they finally reach the bottom of the pit and pull the lid over on them, and that's it. They're ready to give it up. But that wasn't my story. So I never got to that point. I just always had booze on board and had some drinks now and then, and sometimes probably the worst thing with me would be when I was sailing different parts of Polynesia. I'd be telling my crew, okay, let's go out sailing today, and we're going to this next island. And then I'd have a couple drinks, and I'd say, oh, well, the heck with the next island. I'm just going to stay and have a few more drinks. You know, something like that. That's probably the worst that's ever happened. So I don't feel I really hit bottom really hard or did anything like that. There's no thing that I can say, by golly, I hit bottom and I changed overnight. I didn't really do that. I had things like my mom told me that, Lee, every time I see you, you have a can of beer in your hand, and every time I see a picture of you, you have a can of beer in your hand, and I thought, yeah. And my mom said one time, if you keep drinking, you're going to end up like your dad. And I didn't know what she meant. But I'll always remember one time I was at the Hawaii Yacht Club in Honolulu, and I was sitting in the basement, and I wrote my mom, because I'd been to a couple of AA meetings, and I said, Mom, you were right. I ended up like my dad, an alcoholic. And my dad had a whole bunch of stories about, alcoholism and drinking and carousing and lots of different things, and my grandfather as well. And I had sort of became like my dad, and my mom told me I would come that way if I kept drinking. And I didn't know what that meant at first. But after meetings, then I did. So yeah, I wrote down and made my first amends to my mother, probably 40 years ago or so, and said, Mom, yeah, I am like my dad, and I went to some AA meetings, and I want to learn to sober up. I'm tired of being tired. So yeah, it's interesting, that hitting bottom thing. How far down do you go with alcohol? Some people just end up on Skid Row and die there. That's not my story. But I'm still an alcoholic, and my son's still an alcoholic, and I come from a whole line of alcoholics, and I was the first one that, in my family, that ever sobered up. There was old stories about my grandfather around the holidays when we were trying to get together and do things. All my mom and sisters and other ladies in the family were always very nervous about my grandfather coming, because he always had a different attitude. He'd be mad at something or grumbling, and things weren't right, and you didn't know how he was going to act. And I was so young, I didn't know quite what that all meant, but it was because he was drinking. And then later on, all these stories came out about his drinking, and then I realized, that attitude that he had at Christmas time, and about the ladies not knowing how friendly he would be or so on, it was because of alcohol. And then after he passed on, we realized that he had gone to various liquor stores down in Los Angeles where he lived and got liquor, and he owed all the liquor stores money because he'd get a bottle and said, I'll pay you next week. Maybe he did or maybe he didn't, but he was a full-on alcoholic, as it turns out. So yeah, I got there's sort of these stories that I have in my mind, and that I remember from my childhood. But more recent stories, my son, who's now 60 years old in Australia, he inherited the gene of an alcoholic, and is an alcoholic. He's definitely an alcoholic. He's sort of slowed down because a girlfriend that he's with right now just said, Jens, if you keep drinking, I don't want to be with you. So that kind of made a difference in his life. And I tried taking Jens to many AA meetings in Australia, because down there in Australia, they do a lot of drinking. It's big time party time down there. But he didn't want to go to those meetings because he was afraid he was going to run into other people that he worked with, and they were going to sort of shun him, or he wouldn't be so popular or something like that. He was a little afraid of that. So I kind of feel for that kind of situation there's a little stigma about drinking. And then I've been involved with, of course, as a lot of you know, the Sons of Norway Lodge, and we have a big event going on there today, so I'm going down to the Sons of Norway Lodge after church here today to do that. But there was a lot of different Norwegian men that would come up to me and quietly and say, how do you do that? You mean you don't really drink at all? No, wait a minute, you can't, everybody drinks. How can you not drink at all? I said, well, I'm just an alcoholic, and I gave it up, and I realized it's not good for me, it's not healthy, so I was able to give it up. But their life was inconceivable to give up alcohol. And I know that lodge is full of a lot of different alcoholic men, although a lot of them have passed on now. And a lot of them was because of, I believe, alcohol, perhaps smoking as well. And I feel grateful that I was able to give it up, and it made me a more healthier man. So I'm grateful for AA. I'm grateful that I'm in recovery. I like being in recovery because it's who I want to be in life. I'm getting involved with Anita too at what's called the Recovery Cafe in Port Townsend, helping other people. It's passing on that message of that you can recover, you can be a much better person, and here's how I do it. At our meetings, we're only sharing from our heart and soul. We're opening our hearts, spilling it out, telling what we did. And if we can help the next guy, that kind of makes our day, or the next woman. So yeah, thanks, John, for bringing that up.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story, Lee. I think it was very impactful. One question I had is, what role do you think the various cultures you were immersed in had to do with your alcoholism, like being in Tahiti, being in Polynesia, working on ships, living in Seattle? Do you think it was easier to stay away from alcohol in some places and harder in others?
Ooh, to answer that last question, is it harder to stay away in certain areas? Boy, when you're a drinker, you sort of find it. You sort of want it. There's lots of stories in Polynesia, for example, of islanders running out of alcohol, running out of tobacco. In Polynesia, they call tobacco tabac. It comes from the French word, and it's actually tabac negro, black tobacco. If they run out of black tobacco on that whole island, or they run out of Algerian red wine, which is mainly the alcohol that they have or can afford in Polynesia, they'll get in their canoes and row the next island 25 miles away through open sea and everything just to get that one drink, to get that tabac negro, to get that tobacco. That's how powerful drinking can be. So drinking is everywhere, but there is one thing that fascinates me is I feel like I was really born with the genes of an alcoholic person, because it just comes out of North Europe. A lot of North Europeans of English, German, Scandinavian background, they're drinkers, and they like to drink, and drinking's been going on for probably 1,000 years. I mean, every group, every country and ethnic group in Europe's figured out how to make alcohol out of whatever they have, whether it's apples or potatoes or you name it. They figured out how to do it. So it's everywhere. And it's just a case of, we get caught up in it, and we have to know how to handle it and what to do, so it becomes a very personal issue for us. And thank goodness we have AA to help us along into recovery. It's a little bit hard doing it yourself. But with knowing that there's so many AA meetings around, once you go to one, there's great meetings. In fact, St. Paul's Church down on 65th Street here, just down the street there, has a lot of wonderful AA meetings, and I went to a bunch of them, and there's a bunch of younger guys and gals in there that are meetings too that are caught up. People in their 20, 30, 40s, and I'm a lot older than that. I'm usually an old timer when I go to these meetings these days, because there's a lot of young people that want to sober up too. And the good people usually do, and some unfortunately don't, So, thank you.
Oh, I just had one other. At one point, when you were introducing how AA works and talking about the greater power, and I was not paying as much attention as I wanted, and you were saying that even the people that didn't have that, somehow coming to the meetings and feeling this sense of community there helped them kind of make a leap to feeling something beyond themselves, just by being in that community with like values and support. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah.
Because I'm curious about that.
That's a very interesting thing, because what happens is people come in when they're a little bit frightened, they're a little scared. Their wife said, "I'm leaving if you don't go to a meeting," or something like that. They go there, they're quiet, they're not sure what to say, but they realize that people are speaking from their heart, and often one person will tell a story and another will say, "Hey, that's a story just like mine. I had the same problems. I did the same dumb things when I was drinking." So they learned that we've learned each story can help the next guy. So if you come, and eventually you're gonna want to learn to sort of open yourself, because it just sort of happens.
Because I always think about, well, there's quite a few people that would say they're an atheist or agnostic, that are alcoholics and want to benefit from the program, but might struggle with finding a way to a power that transcends themselves. And it sounded like you felt that just the community itself was a big stepping stone towards that.
Yeah, I said that was what would be the group consciousness
Okay.
of the meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what some people seem to rely on. I don't have a problem with the higher power because I relate it to the Holy Spirit, and I feel that in my heart that I have that. I have prayed and good things have happened, and I've been leading, I think, a kind of a righteous life in the last decades. And I know a lot of it is because of my having spiritual principles in my life and sort of religious principles. I'm not a religious guy. I'm not really religious in the sense that a lot of religions have a lot of dogma and rules and regulations and standards of how you have to act and be, and I am not so much connected with that kind of a thing. But I do have spiritual beliefs in the sense that spiritual beliefs are a belief in the human spirit of kindness and being loving and sharing and open and compassionate. And I've learned to listen to people. Actually, as a youngster, I learned to listen to my mother and my grandmother, and that's a very blessing in my life. Learned to listen to my wife to a certain extent, too, because that's a blessing of knowing wisdom comes from many different places. And for a guy, it's good to learn how to listen. That's a big thing in life, just right there.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm also an addict, alcoholic, and I just wanted to say thank you for kind of making this service feel like a meeting. And yeah, I've only got about 9 months away from my drug of choice, but going to meetings and going through the first 4 steps really just changed my whole trajectory. I think at first, like you were asking, it was just like, what? A higher power? No. I'm completely in control of everything. I'm fine. Everyone needs to calm down. But then when you find yourself doing things that are just so against your values, it really makes you sick. And we talk about that in NA a lot, is like when you're doing things that don't align with your true values, it hurts you. But going into a room of strangers and being able to tell them the worst things that you have done, that you cannot admit to your friends, that you cannot admit to your parents, certainly, right? And telling them what you're so ashamed of and having them go, well, I love you anyway. Higher power loves you anyway. I've done something like that. It makes you feel so much less alone, because when you are in addiction, it's lonely. You don't want to go hang out with people unless you can use with them. You don't hang out with your friends who don't use, right? They sort of go to the wayside, and you're spending all of your time with people using, and then if they're busy, well, then you're using by yourself, right? And it gets really gross. But once I gave in, right, there was a moment of like surrender, of just like, okay, I'll just do whatever this woman is telling me to do. She wants me to call her every day. Fine, I'll call her every day. And I really didn't want to. But when I started doing the things that I didn't want to do, things changed. And I realized that the steps of AA and NA was really what I was doing. We're very much aligned with the religion of Islam, and as far as surrendering, accepting what God gives to you, sitting in remembrance of God. And so when I'm still having times where it's just like I'm bored, I'm lonely, you know what would be great? I'll just sit and do like a remembrance or a zikr, or I'll say the 3rd step prayer, which maybe I'll share that as I close. It's, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. And that's kind of my morning prayer. So anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Well, thank you for bringing that up and telling your story. We sometimes say with people that are new to AA that they should get like 90 meetings in 90 days. That's a lot to do.
Like 70 meetings in like 95 days.
Mm-hmm. And there's such a thing, as Sarah was mentioning too, about having like a sponsor, someone that is say, maybe older than yourself, that has more experience, that can help guide you. And we all need somebody like a sponsor, a mentor, or somebody like that helps us through life. That's good. We need people of all kinds of people in our life that helps us live life. And so thank you for opening your heart and sharing.
Well, I think I grew up with your grandfather. I grew up in an alcoholic family, and it was, we never knew what my father was going to be doing. The laundry room had my mother's bottles of alcohol with her lipstick on them, and where she would go in the laundry room and drink, I was blessed not to have the gene. And I'm so thankful and grateful and amazed because my brother also has it. And I just want to thank you because for being this example of stepping away from it, because my parents never did. And I feel like I was extremely affected, even though I wasn't drinking myself, by being the child of an alcoholic. And I've done a lot of therapy and finally learned to love myself after years of not. And so thank you for your strength and your courage and for sharing this.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying that.
Before I share, Bryce, we are not online, is that correct? We are online? Oh, okay. I can't share until we're offline.
Good to see you, my friend.
You too, George. I love you like a brother, man. I've known you for so long, and we've done so much at the Ballard Senior Center over the years and had a great connection, and you're someone special in my life, and you always will be. So I'm grateful you're here. Thank you.
Yeah, same here, thanks. First, I want to say how much I respect AA as an organization. It's been around over 80 years now, whatever it is, and it's one of the few organizations that didn't get usurped by something, didn't get taken over controlled by somebody. And I know you mentioned in there in the traditions about there's no governance, and it's a wonderful thing. And I like to think of myself as a friend to build up you myself there. So, but one of the things that I struggle with is I'm hearing people who have found their way to AA, and we talk about hitting bottom and all these kinds of things. Is the people who won't get there on their own, who can't get there on their own. This few months ago, somebody that I've been involved with here in town was late stage alcoholic. And I kept encouraging him to do something about it. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I said to him, among other things, it's never too late, it's not too late. And a few days later, he died. So it was too late. I was wrong. But I've struggled mainly because some of the people that I hang around with, you mentioned that AA is a organization of attraction and not promotion. But how do you feel? Does anybody else have experience where you see someone suffering so badly and they can't see it for themselves? And if you wait for them to hit that proverbial bottom, it may be too late. At what point is intervening and more than encouraging, kind of strong-arming someone into trying to get into AA or something like that appropriate? Or is it appropriate at any time?
Oh boy, the problem with the drinker is usually you get in such a foggy mindset that you don't want to hear anybody coming along and saying you got to give it up or something. They say that one of the hardest things is kind of giving it up. You have to have a right attitude to give it up. When to intervene, that's always a big question. I usually I don't sort of intervene so much and tell a person not to drink or anything like that. I just try to set the example and tell my story and share it. And basically at AA meetings, what we're doing is just sharing our heartfelt self with other people by telling our story. And hopefully the other person would be sober enough to want to listen to that and learn something from it. But it's tricky business about when to intervene, because that person doesn't want to hear what you have to say, you know. And I know different people hear stories of where, you know, a wife would tell the husband, "Boy, you're drinking a whole lot," and he gets very mad and feisty because he doesn't want to hear any of those stories. He's in his own foggy world, and so the wife really can't do too much, so it usually takes an outsider to come in and grab him by the shirt collar and say, "You need to do something about this or else." You know, and there's stories about where the wife would say, "I'm leaving if you don't stop drinking." And what does he do? He still keeps drinking. I hear stories about that a lot. So the wife nagging at the husband to stop drinking usually doesn't work. It takes sort of an outsider or somebody else to come along to add some input, some intervention that they call it. So that's tricky when is it appropriate to do the intervention? I just try to get people into an AA meeting, and once they get in there, usually if they can be just sober enough for the day, they may hear something that's going to ring a bell in them. It's like planting a seed. You know, I look at if I can get a guy in an AA meeting and I can tell him he kind of belongs there, and just don't say anything, just listen. They often say, "Hey, you're new at AA, just shut up and just listen." That's all what your job is just to listen, to hear something that you can relate to. And that seems to put a little water on the seed that may make it grow. And you get that person going to another meeting, he'll hear something else. Somebody watered that seed a little bit more, and up is growing a plant or a person that's learning who can live with sobriety. Yeah, thanks, George. Good.
Well, thank you so much, Lee. And I know you've offered to talk personally to people if they would like to do that downstairs after the service. And we do deeply appreciate, this has been a beautiful sharing for everybody, and it's been a heart-opening experience for all of us, which I knew it would be. So thank you so much. And we will go through the last part of our service here. I think that we'll pass our plate, and I know online we have people listening who will be kind enough, if they're able, to make a donation online. And these funds, of course, go to our community to help with the building upkeep and the services, all of the lights and the heat and all the good things that we pay for here in this city to help us keep up this historic building. And we appreciate whatever you can afford to give, and also all the volunteer hours that go into so many people's work week. They come and help us out in many, many ways throughout the weeks, and we do deeply appreciate that. We also have a lot of upcoming gatherings and meeting times, and we get together too and share from our hearts in our meditation groups, in our healing circle, the Sisiwa Circle, which reminds me, next Sunday, for the first Sunday of November, we will be welcoming Siswinkle, our Native American woman who comes to our services and also leads a group weekly online and monthly in person. And she will be offering our service next Sunday. We're very grateful to her for coming and sharing her Native American wisdom with us. And the theme for the month of November is about rituals and ceremonies. It's called Sanctuary as a Sacred Space for Rituals and Ceremonies. And so we'll be going into that next month and starting out with Siswinkle next month. We also have, Jamal is starting a new class on November 8th. And this is a spiritual development class that happens online every Saturday morning, starting November 8th through December 13th. And that's from 10 to noon our time. And it is on Zoom, so people can join it from all over the country, which they often do. And you can talk to Jamal or myself if you'd like to register for that. And you can pick up a flyer if you'd like to have the registration information is on here. And also, you know that we're in the middle of a food drive. We moved our food drive box up here so it wouldn't be in the way. We're collecting items for the food drive, for the Ballard Food Bank, and there's another box downstairs. And we're collecting eyeglasses, used eyeglasses or eyeglass case, or even just used frames are useful at the clinic in Bangladesh that we support. And we're having a big dinner to celebrate the annual celebration of our a medical clinic for women and children in Bangladesh in the ancestral village of Jamal and his family, his brother and sister. And they will be offering all kinds of good news about what the developments at the clinic are, and the new eye clinic there, and the work we're putting forward to start a birthing center there. So there's a lot of good work going on, and the young people have taken a lot of the reins, and there are many people in Bangladesh, doctors and medical people, who are helping us move forward and expand our care. So we'll be hearing about that on November 15th, which is a Saturday, and it's not here in this building. It's in Unity of Linwood, where we have a bigger space for 80 people, and you'll be getting announcements on email, and it's on our website, and you can also, but it's important to get a ticket ahead of time, because we usually do sell out the seats, and we'd love to sell out, and but we need to know how much food to order, and we do provide a very delicious South Asian dinner with dessert and chai, tea, and all the wonderful things that go along with that. So it's a wonderful celebratory evening on the 15th of November. We also have a Thanksgiving event that's been going on for 29 years now, and in the Seattle area, an interfaith event. This will be held, again, not here, but at the Well, which is a church on Queen Anne. And I don't have a flyer for that yet, but the date for that, it's a little later. Is it the 27th? I'd have to look it up in my calendar. Yeah, it's before Thanksgiving, and I know Thanksgiving is toward the 23rd. It might be the 23rd of November. So keep your eye out. It's all, and Chiaki has put it all in our upcoming gatherings events on the website, so, and on the calendar events that goes out every Monday. So keep your right, and that one again, I don't have a flyer for. So, and there's a lot going on in the holidays coming up, and of course all of our regular meetings that happen, that happen regularly during the week. So keep an eye out for what sorts of gathering. One of the things I most got deeply from your presentation today, Lee, was how important community is, and I think a lot of people are lonely. Am I right about that? There's a deep loneliness in our country, in our culture. And people who are drinking or who are in an addiction, and by the way, we're all addicted to something. We know that, right? And I mean, in the Buddhist philosophy, that's the cause of suffering, is craving. And craving is another word for addiction. And some of us are addicted to something that we have genetic propensity towards, and some of us just learn our addictions. And we get exposed to things and we have trouble letting go of them. But what came to my mind was, along with any craving comes a certain loneliness. And this is what AA has tapped into, that we can assuage our loneliness by being around people who have experienced things that we also experience. And the people in my life who are drinkers, who drink, and I have it in my genetics too, so I've known many, and I still know many, and they're all deeply lonely. And it's really hard for one other person to get another person out of loneliness. I can try to do it with my children or my students or my friends. One other person, it's very hard to do it. But when you have a group, and you never know who, and you don't even know those people, and one of them touches you in a certain way. I think there must be a certain divine grace to that, or magic, whatever you want to call it. But that's what came to my mind, and this is something that all of our connections with each other can help us with this, with the sense of loneliness we have that puts us on a path that we don't want to be on. It may not be drinking alcohol, it might be something else. It may be scrolling on your phone. My children tell me they're addicted to their phones and they need help with that, and I know that's true. And so I'm just suggesting that it's a much deeper societal problem, and it goes across the board, and if we could all recognize it in ourselves, it might be easier to help each other with it. So use this community. That's what we're here for, and we love being a part of the community that provides people with a path out of loneliness and out of despair. So thank you all for being here, and I think we will if there's any more sharing of the hearts, we'll say goodbye online, and there may be some prayers, there's some brief sharing that we haven't had a chance to do.